I have another little subject here under communication called how to conduct a meeting. Now, this is all kinds of meetings, because there are all kinds of meetings. Here's one of the most important meetings I discovered. Family council. Calling a formal family council 2-3 times a year. I found it to be incredibly important. Where everybody gets to come, bring their notepads, talk about whatever they want to talk about in a formal way. Sometimes some things you just can't cover, just passing during the day and sitting at the breakfast table and, somebody's coming in and somebody's leaving and there's a lot of problems you just can't get solved, things you can't talk about till you just kind of call a formal meeting. Say, everybody bring your notes and we sit around this table and we give everybody a chance to talk and say what they think's right and say what they think's wrong and get this interchange going. Formal family council. I found to be incredibly helpful. Now, let me give you a little clue on conducting a meeting. First phrase. Better than a poor meeting is no meeting. If you're not going to have a good meeting, well planned, well thought out, well put together, the best thing to do is just skip it. If you're going to have a meeting, a get together, have a good one. Now, here are some things to consider when you put a little meeting together. First of all is the place. You got to have a good place. Place helps to create atmosphere, and sometimes you need all the help you can get to make a presentation, get your idea across. We've discovered you can't have a success seminar in a broken down motel. I mean, the two just don't add up. You got to go to a nice place, a place that'll help you with the atmosphere and whatever. When we were courting the girls back in high school, we went to the right places. Got to pick the right place, You don't go out with a city dump. That's not the right place. Got to go up on the hill with the trees and the moon shining through the trees. That's the right place. Atmosphere, something that'll help you with your presentation. Privacy, picking a good place where it's private. I was asked to give a speech one time in Sambo's restaurant. And, Sambo's is okay, but they had this breakfast meeting going. I couldn't believe it. This room they had didn't have any doors on it. It was just open. The dining room and the meeting room and the kitchen was all open here. I couldn't believe. And that was back in the days when I was, I went and spoke everywhere, right? But it was almost impossible. And they were running late, so they said, would you mind talking while we eat? I said, well, I'll try. And I got up and tried, but it was almost impossible. I almost said, hey, let's wait for another time. This isn't going to work. Nobody could hear me. There wasn't any sound system. And I don't know, there's about 150 people there. And everybody was trying to eat, and the waitresses are running in and out. And I'm trying to talk. One of them's pouring my coffee, right? I'm trying to talk. She says, do you want some more coffee? I said, yes, give me some more coffee. Get out of here. I'm trying to talk. Unbelievable. Running in and out of the kitchen, shouting orders. It was the wrong place, just the wrong setup. So that's part of how to conduct a good meeting. Make sure you've got a good setup, a good place. We've also found if you want to conduct a good meeting, you got to have a checklist so that you don't miss anything, checking everything off. Then also keep in mind that funny little things turn people off, and more experience along this line will just give you more and more tips on the things that turn people off. Little things, and people just say, who needs this, right? Now, people will give you room when something goes wrong, right? Because at the best laid plans, life has little surprises waiting for you. But people don't mind the surprises if everything else has gone well, okay? So just keep in mind the little things that can turn people off. Work on those. Work from an agenda. Work from a checklist. Set up a good meeting. Make sure it's the right place. And if you're going to have a meeting, have a good one. Otherwise, skip it. Okay, we won't linger too long on that. Probably not many of you here or maybe some of you here that aren't particularly in business or have meetings to be concerned about. But let me cover now one more subject under communication. And this is called the art of persuasion. Something interesting to keep in mind. And that is, there is a difference between presentation and persuasion. First, you learn to make a presentation. Then you learn the art of persuasion. Because I got a little faked out on this at first, right? When I first got in sales, Mr. Schoaf got me involved in sales first. He got me involved in home building and land development and manufacturing and all kinds of things. Schoaf was an entrepreneur. He did a lot of things. One of the tips he gave me was find a unique person and build a company around him, instead of starting a company and trying to find somebody unique. I've tried it both ways, right? And he had a lot of tips. But he got me in sales. He said, look, try sales for a while because you'll learn more about human behavior in sales than anywhere else. You'll run into this incredible variety of people. And he said, you'll just learn. It's worth a university education to get in sales. talk to people from all walks of life, people with all kinds of problems, happy people and sad people, people that don't need any help, people need lots of help. Just get out there and see the people. He said, you'll get educated about human behavior and life and what's going on, how to identify. Just find out about life by getting out there and mixing it up in sales. I found out he was right. And he gave me this great hope. He said, you know, most people are nice. In fact, he said, there's only about a half a dozen real nasty, horrible, miserable people in the world. That's what he said. Now, he said they move around a lot. And you're liable to run into one once in a while. But he said, hey, look, most people are nice. You're going to have a great time out there. Get out there and see what life is all about. So I got this incredible education in sales. But he gave me this, you know, how to make a good presentation, and I got pretty good at it. In fact, I used to hear people say, hey, you got to be one of the world's great salesmen. I thought, wow, the man has taught me well. Somebody else would say, hey, I've heard them all. You got to be one of the best. I thought, I've got it made. And then one day, the awful truth dawned on me. I said, wait a minute, something's wrong. If I'm one of the world's great salesmen, how come they ain't buying? I was getting faked out. See, I was being congratulated for my presentation. I had yet to master the art of persuasion. So there's a difference between presentation and persuasion. There were two great orators of antiquity. One was Cicero. He was Roman. The other one was Demosthenes. He was Greek. And they were both great orators, great speakers. But it was said of Cicero, when he spoke, everybody said, what a great speech. It was said of Demosthenes, when he spoke, everybody said, let us march. And that's the difference between presentation and persuasion. And if you haven't picked up this phrase yet, now's the time to put it here. Results is the name of the game. If I can persuade you for results. Some people teach for others to learn. Some people teach for others to use. Hopefully I fall in the latter category. I don't want to know your grade on this stuff 6 months from now. I want to read your bank balance 6 months from now. Your style, your language, the changes, the results, tangible, intangible, progress, steps. See, that's what it's all about. Results is the name of the game. And here's the art of persuasion. Let me give you a few simple keys to remember in learning the art of persuasion. First of all, become a good storyteller. It's one of the best ways to persuade is to use stories. Jesus, master teacher, was the great storyteller of all time. Said the kingdom of heaven is like a man, it's like a woman, it's like this, it's like this. Always telling a story, human stories to illustrate what you're trying to get across. So become a good storyteller. Now, to be a good storyteller, you got to collect stories. It's one of the reasons for your journal. Okay, it's one of the reasons for your journal is to collect stories. Just don't miss any of the stories that can help you. You just keep this handy and just jot down little things that come your way so you don't miss them. I was in San Diego one time. Doesn't have the date on here, but I wrote, Richard Pryor finally made enough money to get the stuff that almost killed him. He was working with some expensive stuff. Hopefully he's survived it all. But just gather up the stories. If I had some right handy here, I'd give you some. Now, a daily journal doesn't mean you write in it every day, but it does mean you've got it handy. I wrote something from Bernard Shaw. People are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. He said, I do not believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look for the circumstances they want. And if they cannot find them, they make them. Well said, Bernie. Just pick up the stories. I'm flying from Madrid to New York. A spectacular view of Lisbon as we left for New York. Couldn't see the Rock of Gibraltar. I kept searching for it and couldn't see it. I have just read the news. Steve McQueen is dead. We were the same age. My good fortune goes on. I hope to be as good at my craft as he was at his. And I wrote some things here about La Coruña in northern Spain. What an incredible place. Galicia. Keep your journal handy. Gather up the stories, your impression, so that you can tell the stories of where you've been and who you've met, things you've read, okay? Learn to be the teller of stories. Doesn't take much of a story. What was I trying to illustrate? Oh, we all need a little help. I was illustrating that one time. I said, I remember when I was a little bitty kid, the first day I decided I could ride a bicycle. I know I'm too little for my feet to touch the ground, but I thought I can ride one of those things. I'm just little. I said I just need two things. First, I need somebody to hold it so I can get on. Now that I'd figured out, because I couldn't figure out how I could get on it and get going by myself. But I said, if somebody's to hold it. and let me on it, and then give me a push. I could ride it, right? I knew getting off was easy, right? Just fall off. I mean, that's easy, right? I've already learned that art. But I figured out if somebody held it, if I got on it, and they gave me a push, I could ride it. So it doesn't take much of a story. Just be a storyteller. It'll get the point across. Okay? So be a gatherer of stories. Next, the art of persuasion is correct handling of the facts. Don't exaggerate the correct information. Nothing destroys credibility like a misuse of the facts. If it's 100, it's 100. If it's 500, it's 500. Make sure the numbers are correct and the facts are correct. Your meticulous sticking to the facts will make this credibility so strong. Okay, next is quotes. Learn how to quote. Sometimes you can't say it quite as well yourself as someone else has said it. So be a gatherer of quotes and learn quotes that can help to illustrate whatever you're wanting to say. And quotes are also a good attention getter. Do you notice how, you're just going along in conversation and you quote something? People just listen a little better when you quote. You quote a poem or a sentence or a saying or something. It's really helpful in the art of persuasion, getting attention. It also shows you've done your homework. You are really interested enough in your subject to gather up the quotes on the subject. So use quotes. I have quotes, right, sprinkled throughout that whole evening seminar. One of them was, Benjamin Disraeli once said, nothing can resist a human will. Remember that one? That will stake even its existence on the extent of its purpose. See, that's well said. Just learn the quotes, capture them in your journal, and then rehearse them and repeat them till they become part of you. And sure enough, you'll find all kinds of uses for the stuff you've captured and practiced. Captured and practiced. In Salt Lake City the other day, I was doing a seminar, and I was talking about the truth. And I remembered Churchill's quote, the truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, and ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is. See, that's well said. You could sit up all night and not think of that, right? I mean, that's good. Good quotes. So learn how the quotes and the poems are just, they're heavy, they're good stuff. Whether it's fun or whether it's serious, just learn all the quotes. Once in a while I use the one, when Judy and I parted, I'll tell you a little bit more about that tomorrow. Judy and I parted about 5-6 years ago. The most incredible experience of my life was when I was married to Judy. But after we parted, I wrote her a little letter, and it was only a half a page long. But at that time, it expressed some unique thoughts that I had and feelings that I had. And it went like this. Dear Judy, as often as the night comes, so does my sadness. As constant as the day arrives, so is my love for you. I wish for you, and I wish the best for you, and I understand that dilemma. The mixture of both love and sadness startles me. My life is here where you touched me. If ever you should call, I will be there to be touched again. It was very brief, it was very short, but at the moment, it said what I wanted to say. And for a long time after that, I wouldn't quote it on an occasion like this. But finally, that experience has taken its rightful place in my life, and now I'm able to do it. But something you write yourself, write it out and then rehearse it. If it sounds good, and then use it. Express yourself on paper. Then go over it till it takes root in your mind and your heart and starts to grow. And sure enough, daily in conversation, all kinds of occasions you'll have to quote something that you've written, a couple of verses of something. But use quotes. They're so good because some people have said it so well. And if you practice, you can say something so well that it'll get the point across. It'll cover the subject. It'll do the job. So quotes. Here's another one in the art of persuasion, oratory. And if you're not, involved in sort of speaking in public or to groups of people, you may not be so involved in oratory, but even in personal conversation, really, public presentation is only an extension of personal conversation. That's how you practice your public presentation, personal conversation. Don't make one separate from the other. Be just as good a storyteller in person as you are on the platform, or as you are in public, or as you are to your office, or to your group, or to your salespeople, or your organization, or whatever. Be a good storyteller wherever you go. Learn how to get your point across one-on-one, just as important as one on a group. Okay? That way you get lots of practice because we're always talking and visiting and chatting with people. But make it a practice session. Now, oratory is just saying something extremely well for just a little burst of time. I have a little bit of it in the evening seminar when I come to the disease of attitude called complaining. It's in there. When I say spend 5 minutes complaining and you've wasted 5, and you may have begun what's known as economic cancer of the bone. Surely they will soon haul you off into a financial desert and there let you choke on the dust of your own regret. Now, that's just a little what we call a burst of oratory, right? It's just something well said, well put together, and you just use it. One is for attention, of course. One is to get the point across. One is to cover what you're trying to cover, okay? But use it. Now, you can't do that for 30 minutes, right? You know, the attention span isn't that long, but oratory is good. Here's another part of the art of persuasion, straight talk. We've all used the expression. It's a good expression. Let's tell it like it is. Almost everybody's willing to say, level with me. Just let's tell it like it is. Straight talk. And we can all use straight talk. Here's the next one, challenge. Everybody responds to a challenge. So I'm not sure you can do it. I don't know. See, all you got to do is say that to me, right? See, I bet you can't make another $1 million in the next 6 months. How much we got riding on this, right? I mean, that's all I want to know, right? What is the bet? Hey, we all respond to a challenge. We all respond to doing something well, seeing if we can do it. I mean, since we were kids, right? Competition, challenge. I always go for that, okay? Climbing the mountain, going through the experience, becoming a better person, learning to talk better, and walk better, and look better, and lifestyle, affecting other people, developing personality. There's challenges everywhere. And if you're good at giving somebody a challenge, whether it's a small one or a large one, whether it's a small step or a long step, just challenge people to change, challenge them to grow, challenge them to buy, to decide, to try, to move. If you're good at challenge, you'll be good in the art of persuasion. The next one is learn how to paint pictures, words, fitly framed together that describes something, that gives color to what you're trying to say, gives depth. It has several dimensions. Learn how to paint pictures with words. Okay. Part of the art of persuasion is taking people on a word journey, a journey of words, descriptions. Now, part of those pictures develop as you get older, as you get more experience in life. Part of that's just a growth process. It really is. One of Judy's boys, Bruce, when Bruce was about 12, we're up at the ranch riding the motorcycles up on the Jeep trail. And Bruce was pretty good at age 11, 12. Even on the big motorcycles, he was good. In fact, he was better than me, you know, climbing some of those hills. But I'm in the lead one day, right? And we're running the Jeep trails. I noticed this little clearing right through the trees where the trail made a little circle out, you know, along the side of the mountain. And the view was absolutely breathtaking. So I pulled up and stopped. I'm taking off my helmet. I'm looking at this view. It is spectacular. The colors, it's along about 5 o'clock in the evening and the colors are gathering, and the valley below, this little river running through the valley, the cattle are down there grazing, the mountains in the distance, the colors, the trees, the mountains, it was just fantastic. And I'm drinking in this scene. And Bruce comes flying up on his motorcycle, right up behind me, stops, gets off, takes off his helmet. He's pulling off his gloves, walking up where I am. And I say, Bruce, look at this view. Isn't this fabulous? And he takes a look, and he looks at his watch and says, we better get going. We're going to be late. And I thought, why doesn't this view affect him like it affects me? I'm stunned by the colors and what's happening. And then it dawned on me. He's only 12. See, when you're 12, you've only got 4 or 5 colors on your palette to paint pictures. You just don't have very many. But sure enough, as you get older, as you gather experience, you just get this better variety of colors on your palette, all kinds of shades of green and blue. The colors start to grow and change. Then if you get good at using all these colors to paint pictures in other people's minds, see, that's when things can really start to take shape. Learning how to paint pictures, how to get the ideas across, how to tell the stories, how to get to the heart of the matter. All of that is a matter of art, learning how, painting pictures. And last, in the art of persuasion, the greatest element in the art of persuasion is a passionate belief in something. We're all affected by people who passionately believe. Maybe it's an experience, or maybe it's a philosophical viewpoint, or political, or social, or something. These incredible people that have this unbelievable ability to feel strong, immensely strong about an idea. See, that'll affect everything else you do. A passionate belief in something. And probably the greatest illustration of this passionate belief in how it works in the art of persuasion is a story about Paul, the great leader of the early Christians, formerly known as Saul from Tarsus. After his conversion, he became a unique champion of the early Christian church. In fact, he had a nickname. They called Paul the Great Persuader. That's what they called him. I'm sure the story went around saying, if you don't want to be a Christian, here's a guy you don't want to get around. I mean, he's got this incredible story. If you get close to him, he'll put his story on you. And unless you're terribly strong, he'll get you. He's got this story. Not only does he have the story, but he's got this incredible ability to tell it. And sure enough, he must have been the great persuader. His reputation preceded him. The story says, unfortunately, one day he found himself in King Agrippa's dungeon. And they brought King Agrippa the news. They said, "Oh, King, you may not know it, but you got a fairly famous man in your dungeon." Agrippa said, "Pray tell, who have I got?" They said, "It's Paul. Paul, this leader of this Christian thing." Agrippa said, "How incredible." He said, "I'm curious. I'd like to hear his story." So the story said he sent for him, and they got him out of the dungeon and stood him in front of the king with the shackles on his feet and the chains on his hands, fresh out of the dungeon, stood him in front of Agrippa. Agrippa says, "Paul, I've heard about you and this Christian movement." He said, "Unfortunately, you find yourself in my dungeon." But he said, "I'm curious about this whole thing. What's going on here, this whole Christian movement?" He said, I'm curious. He said, "Why don't you tell me your story?" He shouldn't have asked, right? One of the greatest classic stories of ancient scripture. One more time, with unbelievable eloquence, this unique man, formerly the persecutor, now the great leader, tells his story one more time. And he tells it so well. The story of his conversion, how he used to persecute the Christians, and now he's the leader. Told about his conversion on this road to Damascus. And he tells his story so well. He winds it up by saying, "Oh, King, I wish you were just like me. Except for these chains. I don't wish that on you, fresh out of someone's dungeon. But the feelings, the conversion, being on this side versus that side, you can't believe what it's like." And once again, he told the story with such eloquence and such passion and such belief and with such detail that sure enough, it got the job done. The story says King Agrippa, after Paul finished his story, sent him back to the dungeon. But before he sent him back, he said, "Well, sir, I must admit, you have almost persuaded me to be a Christian." What a classic story. Somebody says, "How good can you get at this stuff?" You can almost get the king. I mean, that's how good you can get. And everybody else in between you and the king doesn't have a chance. Once you get good at the art of persuasion, telling your story, learning identification and logic and reason, learning to paint pictures and solution, learning to give quotes and write your own, make this whole mixture of communication something that is a daily important part of your life. And sure enough, if you'll get good at it, as you can, very few people will be able to escape your influence, whether they're children or business people, family, friends, or people from distant land. Communication, the art of persuasion. I wish it for you as much as I wish anything else for you. Personal development. Probably one of my most difficult assignments when I met Mr. Shelf, age 25. In fact, I'm still working on this one. I guess it's a never-ending challenge to see what you can become, and the big challenge of life is what you can become. And I have a good phrase for you: don't settle for less than you can be. The dimensions of your life are just unending in possibility. Capacity is never the problem. Guess how many languages kids can learn? No telling. I mean, they can learn all you'll take the time to teach them. We found children's capacity is not the problem. The only problem is time and people willing to take the energy to teach. In Europe, right, the kids learn several languages. It's unbelievable what you can learn, the person you can become if you really try. My daughters grew up in the Beverly Hills school system. We lived in Beverly Hills several years. In the first grade, they offer 3 languages. Neat. Spanish, French, or German. So when your kids go to school, starting grade 1, they can take another language, take it all the way through school, high school. By the time they graduate from high school, they know 2 languages instead of 1. Incredible. But see, our capacity is not what's limited. What's limited really is our desire, or we don't think we can. But personal development is a unique challenge. Under personal development, I have New habits don't come easy. It is a disciplined effort. Personal development. Personal development is not an easy matter, but the new habits will come. They can be developed if you take up the challenge of becoming more than you are. For real success, we need to just keep up the growth curve. When we were children, we were on this growth curve. We learned to walk, learned to talk, learned the language. We learned, right, communication, how to get along. I mean, the information we digested and what we did about it and trial and error and working on it was just, a strong curve. The problem is, along about college, right, this curve starts to take a dip. And guess when it almost levels off for a lot of people? When they get their first job. Now they've got a job, and they quit this incredible learning curve of challenging themselves to grow and to change. And sure enough, some people in 20, 30 years are not much further advanced than they were when they got their first job. They're just out there making money and spending it. They finally learned how to do that, but that was about the end of the growth curve. But if you work on it, personal development can be a unique challenge as well as all the dimensions of your life that can be explored in their possibilities and the results. And once you get hooked on the results, you don't mind the discipline. You just need a little taste of results. And then the discipline now seems much more desirable. Kids often ask me, is it worth the work? Is it worth the discipline? And the answer is always yes, and here's why. For every disciplined effort, you get a multiple return. For every disciplined effort, you get a multiple return. So it's well worth the discipline because you get so much back from the slightest discipline. And also, just the process of discipline makes you feel better about yourself. And the greatest step toward accomplishment is self-confidence. And self-confidence comes not just from accomplishment. Self-confidence comes from attempt as much as accomplishment. If you start doing something that you've let slide for 3 or 4 years, guess how quick you feel better? Right away. Right. You should have been writing 5 letters a day and you've never done it. But the first day you write your 5 letters, guess how you feel? Incredible. Strong. It all starts to change. Okay. So discipline has its unique reward right away in that you feel better about yourself. See, the greatest cause of failure is lack of self-confidence. Guilt. And remember, failing is not a cataclysmic event. Failing is just a long list of small failures. They just keep stacking up. You should have written 5 letters a day and you write 1. Now you got 4 strikes against you. And the day isn't even over. You should have made 10 calls, make 2. That's 8 more. That's 8 plus 4. That's 12. And the day isn't over yet. 12 in one day. Little failings. Should have put it together and you didn't. That's another one. And sure enough, some people by the end of the day have got this whole stack of failings. And it wasn't something that they couldn't have done. It was something that they could have done and didn't do. And see, that always brings guilt. Guilt erodes self-confidence. And lack of self-confidence is the greatest deterrent for success. Now, here's what success is. Just reversing the process. See, if you should write 5 letters today and you write 8, so you're up 3. That's what you do. Guess how that makes you feel at the end of the day? Terrific. I should make at least 4 calls and you just make 10. Now you're up 6. 6 plus 3 is 9. And the day isn't even over yet. And now you've got failure on the run. 1 is the change in how you feel. The accomplishments from it are going to come later, but see, the greatest accomplishment is the feeling of getting a handle on it, making the changes, making the attempt, starting the discipline is just about as exciting as the accomplishment that comes from the discipline. We all need 2 things to do well. 1 is inspiration, but inspiration must soon lead to discipline. We all proceed primarily based on how we feel. That's why your philosophical refinement is so important, because it adjusts how you feel so you can proceed better. We will only do what our current philosophical position asks us to do or drives us to do. That's all we will do. We proceed based on attitude, and attitude comes from our current philosophical position. And all of us need our philosophical position refined. That's the reason for attending a couple of days like this. That's the reason for listening to the sermons, going to the classes, attending the training, sitting in conferences, having a discussion with people. All of that refinement of our philosophical position so that we feel now better and we proceed better. A successful man I knew once said, success is 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. You've actually got to now get busy on what you've been inspired to do. That's why I always love to give a tangible effort activity based on a new conclusion, right? If you want to be better educated, you got to go get that first book. You just got to go get the book. Because otherwise, you just walk out of some classes or some speeches and you just feel good. And sure enough, if you don't get busy on some tangible something to go to work on, now the good feeling soon passes and you're right back where you started. That's why positive thinking speeches must always include action things to go to work on so that you don't lose the momentum. Otherwise, you skip out of the room with a mental lollipop. And when the lollipop is gone, now you're right back where you started, right? You got to have something to go to work on. But sure enough, some people will just feel good about a better idea, but they won't do much about it. Guess what percentage of people after the seminar is over go get the book and Think and Grow Rich? Very few. It's unbelievable. I talk about setting goals and writing them down. Guess how many start that process after the seminar is over? Very few. In fact, it'll put you in the top 5%. Let me give you the 7 fundamentals for wealth and happiness. 7 fundamentals for wealth and happiness. I put this on a videotape the other day. We're going to make it available for companies and offices and corporations, but let me pass it along to you. Here's what will put you in the top 5%. 1, a constant plan for setting, rearranging, evaluating, and strengthening the purpose of your goals. So number 1 is goals. A constant plan for setting, rearranging, evaluating, and strengthening the purpose of your goals. Now, see, that process, that number 1 fundamental will put you in the top 5%. Guess how many people have a constant plan for setting, rearranging, evaluating, and strengthening the purpose of their goals? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. But it's one of the fundamentals for wealth and happiness. Here's the second one. A management plan for your present resources. You got to know what you do with what you got. We're going to cover that later on under how to become financially independent. A management plan for your present resources. Resources meaning a lot of things. Talent, effort, ability, time, money, all the substance that you have. We all have resources. The question is, what are you going to do with them? And if you don't have a plan, guess what? You do minimum things with your resources. Guess what kind of results you get? Minimum. So you don't get maximum results from minimum effort. Guess how many people have a management plan for their present resources? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. It's one of the fundamentals for wealth and happiness. Third fundamental for success is a detailed plan for the use of your work time. And we're going to cover that. Mr. McBride will get into it a little more thoroughly before the day's over. A detailed plan for the use of your work time. We call it a game plan. Put your future activity, first of all, on paper before you put it on the street. I ask somebody, what are you going to do the next 6 months? They start telling me. I say, no, don't tell me. Show me. Show me what you're going to do the next 6 months. See, if you can show somebody what you're going to do the next 6 months, somebody knowledgeable can pick up the errors. They can show you where you could make some changes. But see, it's hard to correct conversation. Show me. Guess how many people have a detailed plan for the use of their work time? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. Here's the 4th fundamental for success. A consistent plan for the gathering of knowledge. In other words, gathering ideas on purpose. A plan for gathering ideas on purpose. Spiritual ideas, personal ideas, culture, religious, human behavior, business. Developing a library, attending the lectures, contemplating, studying. A consistent plan for gathering knowledge. Rarely does a good idea interrupt you. Really? Guess where you find ideas? When you search for them. You gotta go searching. You go to church searching. You go to the lecture searching. You go to the library searching. You go to the bookstore searching. You go back through your journals searching. A Bible phrase says, seek, search, look. It won't come by. You got to go. Go, look, go, read, go, search, go, try to find out. You gotta go search. That's what it says. Now the formula's terrific. It says seek and what? You'll find anything, everything you need. Your heart, your soul, your business, your enterprise, your family. If you search, you'll find it. But that's part of the human process you just got to go through. You gotta go search. Take your journal and go listen, go look. Guess how many people have these journals? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. I go to church a few months ago up in Northern California. There's about 500 people Sunday morning. Sermon, excellent. I got my journal. I'm taking notes. And I look around. Guess who else is taking notes? Nobody. I felt a little uncomfortable. I felt a little like a spy. I couldn't believe it. It was as if everybody else had decided there wasn't going to be anything worth writing down, so why bring your journal? But guess what? It was a very worthwhile lecture, and I got it. And it's because I developed this habit a long time ago. Go looking, go searching, go expecting. And it isn't that you'll find something every time, but you got to practice searching. You got to go where the information is. So everybody needs a consistent plan for gathering knowledge, right? You got to read so many books a week. You got to go to so many lectures a year. You got to go search for the knowledge. Okay, a consistent plan for gathering knowledge. That'll put you in the top 5%. Here's the fifth fundamental for wealth and happiness. An association of people of common interest in progress, success, ideas, and philosophy. An association of people of common interest in progress, success, ideas, and philosophy. We might simply put number 5. You gotta get around the right people. It's one of the fundamentals for wealth and happiness. You gotta associate with the right people. Let me give you another little key phrase. Never mistake the power of influence. We're all being influenced. The question is, by who? Somebody's got us doing what we're doing. Who are they? Somebody's got us living like we're living, spending what we're spending, earning what we're earning. Somebody's got us doing that. The question is, who are they? See, don't mistake the power of influence. The guy says, well, I'm around these people, but they don't bother me. See, that's not true. The guy says, I live here, but it doesn't really bother me. See, that's not true. Where you live, who you're with, does affect you. And you got to make sure, sometimes you can't always be around, all the positive people. But I tell you what you got to do. You got to counterbalance negative influence with positive influence. You just got to spend so much time around the right people so that the wrong people that you have to be around are not going to affect you that much. An association. Mr. Shove said, Mr. Rohn, do your best, pull every trick you can think of to get around the right people. And in those early days, I did everything I could to get around the right people. I disguised myself. I did. I went incognito. I'd park my car 3 blocks away, and I'd walk, because I knew if I drove up there in my present car, they wouldn't let me in. I did it all. Shove said, you got to get around the influence that will pull you up, the influence that talks success and personal development, that talks culture and lifestyle and uniqueness. You got to get around. So that's the 5th fundamental for success, an association. Guess how many people have an association of people of common interest in progress, success, ideas, and philosophy? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. Here's the 6th fundamental for success. A plan for the developing of all your personal skills. A plan for the developing of all your personal skills. No telling what skill you can develop if you plan for it. Set it up. Set up the school. Set up the classes. Put it on your game plan. Here's when I'm going to go learn this. Here's when I'm going to go learn this. I go to night school. I go to day school. I go to morning school. I take these weekend classes. I do this. Everything I can think of to develop my personal skills. Skills of leadership. Skills of language, business skills, investment skills, better work skills. I mean, you can learn to do anything if you set it up and have a plan. Put it on your game plan for learning, changing, growing. Okay. Guess how many people have plan for the development of all their personal skills? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. Here's the last one. Last fundamental for wealth and happiness. It's called lifestyle. A constant plan for figuring ways to live uniquely. A constant plan for figuring ways to live uniquely. How to enjoy your substance. How to spend it and get delight. Family, friends, the people you know. How to get joy from your life, not existence. Joy. The reason for the Republic was that we all might with liberty and freedom pursue happiness. Guess how many people are taking advantage of pursuing happiness, making it a study, practicing the art? Very few. It'll put you in the top 5%. Some people have the money, but they don't know how to spend it. They don't know what lifestyle's all about. That's why it's not too good just to make a lucky windfall of money. The guy got him a $50,000 house, now it's worth a $500,000 house, but he's still a $50,000 guy. And it's kind of pitiful to see a $50,000 guy in a $500,000 house. The house grew in value, but he didn't. See, there's nothing more pitiful than a rich clod, right? Guy eats with his elbow in his soup, right? I mean, he's got the money, but he's just a clod. Or the mismatch. $1 million lady with a $50,000 guy. I mean, it's just a mismatch. Okay. Lifestyle, figuring ways to get joy from everything you do and spend. It's an art. It's something you work on constantly, lifestyle. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we wrap up personal development tomorrow. But those are the 7 fundamentals.